we have the current stock market update for NVIDIA Corporation, stock ticker NVDA. Before we begin with today's chart analysis, if you find this educational material to be helpful in your trading, please remember to click the like and subscribe buttons and leave your thoughts below in the comments section so that other traders can find this information more easily on the platform. So we can see here there has been some interesting price movement, and we are actually starting to see share prices kind of unfold or progress at fairly predictable price levels. So I am going to be zooming in a bit on this price chart, but I did want to sort of take a longer, broad view first, just so we can sort of see where we stand at the moment. This is the 4-hour time frame, and I will be sort of zooming in here in a moment. But as we can see here, for the most part, the real issue is whether or not we're going to be able to break this longer term downtrend line. Now, I'm not a huge fan necessarily of trend lines. I do think that they have some value. They're not meaningless, but they tend to have much more value when they're seen on these longer term time frames, and they're especially meaningful when you see them develop from historical price points. So when I say historical price points, in this case, I do mean the all-time high, which came in at 140.76. So that would be that June 20 price high for NVIDIA. Since then, share prices have seen this succession of lower highs, and that is important. And that is really why trend lines are important, because it's not that there's a line on the chart. Some people dismiss technical analysis and they say, well, you're just drawing lines. I mean, it means nothing. Look, I understand that argument, but what this really does, and what this trend line is telling us, is that the stock itself has seen a series of lower highs. Every time the market tries to break toward its prior high, there's something in the market that's preventing that action from taking place. So I do think that that's significant information, and that's not something that should just be completely dismissed or disregarded as drawing lines on the chart, like this is a child with a coloring book or something like that. I mean, this does tell us something about market behavior. So, near term here, what we're really looking at is a fairly important downtrend line for this stock. And I do think that after this trend line breaks, I do think that we're going to see a bit of a sea change, a bit of a momentum change in the underlying price action here, because that sequence of lower highs will now be completed. So, if we sort of drill in here a bit closer, we can see that there have been some prior price failures, and there was even a possibility here that what we really were seeing was a false breakout at 127.66. If you go back to the prior videos, the way that I'm defining whether or not this is a false breakout to the downside would be if this support zone at 114.87 did ultimately break. But as we can see here, that did not occur. We did actually see share prices fall back toward that level, but then bounce in the upward direction once again. So this is all unfolding in an extremely orderly, sort of predictable fashion. I mean, the only thing that I would say here that maybe was not predictable was the fact that we did see this spike upward movement through the downtrend line and then see a price failure. That on its own, you could call that a surprise, or, it sort of alerted our attention here to the possibility that this could be a false breakout. But the rules remain the same. I mean, you have to look toward those near-term support levels. And in this case, this was defined by, right around 115. The ultimate price low here was 114.87, but anything in this region here is acceptable, because if we manage to hold support in that prior area and then bounce higher, you don't really have enough information or enough evidence to start referring to that as a false breakout to the top side. So, with this upward movement here back into that trend line, the balance of the evidence here does suggest that this is going to break here. And even if it fails here relatively soon, it doesn't look like we're going to break above here into the Friday close. But even if we did see a price failure here on Monday, we're really putting a lot of pressure on that downtrend line, and eventually those situations start to break. I mean, the analogy that I typically use in these cases, it's like a battering ram. You're trying to break down a door. The police, they want to break into somebody's house and they have a battering ram and they try to beat down the door. Well, if you do that enough times, eventually that door is going to break down. And I do think that it's the same thing with support and resistance levels, with trend lines and things like that. I mean, if you put enough pressure on these things, eventually, things start to give way here. So, in my view, this is what this is starting to look like. We did see a breakdown into support, but we did then bounce in a very orderly, predictable fashion, and now we're right back into that trend line once again. So we haven't broken above here just yet, and we can't make any assumptions. We have to wait for the trend line to actually break. But overall, this is starting to look as though that will be the ultimate conclusion here, and that this prior break into 127.66 really shouldn't be viewed, as a significant false breakout. So just to close out the video here, just finally, we will be looking at the momentum reading here on the hourly time frame. There are some conflicting signals here. There's still some negative momentum that's showing in the relative strength index, but there is a bit of a conflicting, scenario here, because we also have somewhat long-term movements in the opposite direction. So there is some trend momentum that's showing here to the downside and to the top side. So I think people don't like it when I say those things, because it's like, well, it's confusing and you're not really saying anything and you're saying it could go either way. Yeah, well, that's what the chart says. I mean, we don't. What this means is that we don't really have much evidence in either direction. Things could break in either direction. As we can see here, the near term risk would be for share prices to continue moving higher, and then for this relative strength index reading to break through that downtrend line. This does look like the most likely scenario near term, because we are trading much closer to that downtrend line. But we will have to see how share prices behave once we get into that area, because overall, there is still potential here for price point failure that could send share prices lower as well. So we have not yet broken through that downtrend line. It still remains to be seen whether or not that's going to happen, and this is occurring at a significant time too, because we're about to fall into the weekly close here, and this will sort of show that probably that share prices did not manage to overcome that trend line before the weekly close. So that does sort of put some pressure on the downside. I mean, we open the session on Monday. It's very possible that the market starts to interpret this as a potential failure. We're running into resistance. You could start to see share prices move lower at that point. But the trend line itself is what makes that decision. And if we do see a break upward, then that now points our bias in the positive direction. So here's the current stock market update for NVIDIA Corporation, stock ticker NVDA. Our high value trading strategies membership is currently available for a limited time for only $9.99 per month. These high conviction investment strategies are characterized by superior risk to reward metrics that target massive market beating returns over time. Join now to outperform the market. Lock in this special introductory rate of just $9.99 per month for the entire lifetime of your membership, and start trading stocks with the pros.